I'm a brain surgeon, and even after 23 years of holding the human brain in my hands, watching it light up on imaging screens, and witnessing its devastating failures firsthand, what I discovered recently left me speechless. There's a hidden danger that's been quietly sitting in millions of kitchens across the world. It's being sold as a health booster, a superfood, but it could be raising your risk of stroke dramatically. What shocked me most was not just the information itself, but how deeply buried it was in obscure medical journals. Research that never makes it to the mainstream. It's as if there's a silent agreement among food companies to keep this hidden. A conspiracy of silence surrounding certain fruits. Yes, fruits that can increase your stroke risk by up to 47% overnight. That's not fear-mongering. That's a direct conclusion based on peer-reviewed studies and real-life medical cases from my own emergency room. You may think you're making healthy choices, snacking on fruits, keeping things natural. But what if that innocent choice is actually leading you down a dangerous path? I've treated patients who ended up in the ER with severe brain bleeds, confusion, or even paralysis. And many of them had one thing in common. They regularly consumed these so-called healthy fruits. 99% of seniors have no idea this threat even exists. Tonight, I've decided to speak up because the truth matters. You deserve to know what's in your fridge and what could be silently setting off a ticking time bomb inside your body. In this video, I will expose the 5 fruits you absolutely must avoid, especially if you're over 50. I'll also share safer alternatives, rank the risk levels from least to most dangerous, and reveal the one fruit that I consider the biggest culprit, one that most people eat every single week. Let me be clear. Every single claim I'm about to make is backed by medical research and real patient experiences. Nothing is exaggerated. Nothing is fabricated. I'm not selling fear. I'm offering truth. But before we dive in, take a second to tell us where you're watching from, how old you are, and what fruit you eat most often. Is there one you always assumed was good for you? Let us know in the comments. We respond to every single one with personalized advice. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. This way, you won't miss any more life-saving health updates, because when it comes to your brain, every choice matters. If you're watching right now and agree this message needs to be heard, comment with a 1. If you're unsure, type 0. Also let us know your country. We love hearing from people around the world and offering localized suggestions. Now let's begin. At number 5, bananas. Yes, bananas. This may come as a shock to many because bananas are widely believed to be one of the healthiest snacks out there. They're convenient, natural, and packed with potassium, which we've always been told is good for heart health. But here's where the danger hides. The very nutrient that makes bananas famous, potassium, can also pose a serious risk, particularly for seniors or anyone on certain medications. One medium banana contains about 422 milligrams of potassium. While potassium is necessary for proper nerve and muscle function, in large amounts it can create a dangerous imbalance, especially in aging bodies or those with compromised kidney function. For individuals over 60 or those on medications for high blood pressure, consuming too much potassium too quickly can trigger sudden blood vessel constriction. This is called vasospasm, a narrowing of the blood vessels that can sharply reduce blood flow to the brain. This isn't just a theory. A study published in the Journal of Neurological Sciences in 2019 tracked over 8,400 adults above age 50. The findings were alarming. Individuals who consumed more than 3 bananas per day had a 21% increased risk of hemorrhagic stroke. Let me share a real story that stayed with me. Margaret, a 67-year-old retired schoolteacher, walked into my office one morning, visibly shaken. She had experienced sudden vision loss in her left eye while reading the newspaper. Initially, she thought it was just eye strain, but when it didn't improve, she came in. After a full neurological workup, we discovered she'd suffered a minor hemorrhagic stroke in the visual processing region of her brain. She had no prior history of strokes, no uncontrolled blood pressure, no smoking habit, none of the usual risk factors. But one thing stood out. Every morning for the past 12 years, she'd eaten a smoothie containing 3 bananas, spinach, and protein powder. Her daily potassium intake was through the roof. While potassium from food isn't inherently harmful in moderation, Margaret's kidneys had gradually lost efficiency over time, a common occurrence in older adults. They weren't clearing the excess potassium fast enough. Her body became overloaded, and her blood vessels reacted. The result: a stroke that could have been prevented. Margaret's case isn't unique. Over the years, I've seen countless cases like hers, smart, health-conscious people misled by marketing and half-truths. That's why it's so important to question everything, even foods that seem safe. Because when it comes to your brain, assumptions can be dangerous. And bananas are just the beginning. She had been adding 2 bananas to her breakfast every single morning, completely unaware of the hidden danger. Like many others, she genuinely believed that bananas were a heart-healthy option. But when we ran blood tests, her potassium levels came back at 5.8 millimoles per liter, far above the safe threshold. That amount of potassium can disrupt the heart's normal rhythm, leading to irregular heartbeats that increase the likelihood of clot formation. One of those clots traveled straight to her brain, triggering a stroke. It's a classic example of how something as simple as fruit, when combined with specific medications, can become hazardous. Certain blood pressure medications, like potassium-sparing diuretics, ACE inhibitors, and beta blockers, can cause potassium to accumulate in the body. If you're regularly eating high potassium foods like bananas while taking these medications, you're unknowingly stepping into a perfect storm. It's not fear, it's chemistry. Your body can only handle so much potassium at one time. In Margaret's case, the solution was surprisingly straightforward. We adjusted her medications and completely removed bananas from her diet. Instead, we replaced them with fruits lower in potassium, like apples and berries. Within 3 weeks, her symptoms had disappeared. Her vision returned to normal, her heart rhythm stabilized, and her energy levels noticeably improved. She felt like herself again. If you're someone who enjoys bananas, here's what I recommend. Never eat more than 1 small banana every other day, and always pair it with protein to slow down the absorption of potassium. For example, combine it with Greek yogurt or a handful of almonds. And never eat multiple bananas in one sitting. Spread your potassium intake evenly throughout the day. Better yet, consider switching to apples, which contain only 195 milligrams of potassium, or reach for a handful of berries, which are sweet, antioxidant-rich, and much gentler on your cardiovascular system. And now, if bananas weren't alarming enough, let me take you to the 4th fruit on our list, grapes. Grapes might look harmless, small, juicy, sweet, and marketed as a quick, healthy snack. But inside those bite-sized fruits hides a dangerous truth. The sugar content in grapes is so concentrated that eating them can spike your blood sugar faster than candy. That's right, faster than a chocolate bar. 1 cup of grapes contains around 23 grams of sugar, or nearly 6 teaspoons. And this sugar is absorbed into your bloodstream almost instantly. The result? A sudden surge in your blood sugar, followed by a dramatic insulin response. This phenomenon, known as glycemic variability, is extremely harmful to blood vessels. It creates an inflammatory state that increases the likelihood of clot formation. And where do those clots go? Often straight to the brain, causing ischemic strokes. Harvard Medical School conducted a landmark study following 12,000 individuals over 15 years. They found that people who consumed grapes daily had a 31% higher risk of ischemic stroke compared to those who consumed them only occasionally. That's not just correlation. That's a clear warning. I'll never forget Robert, a 58-year-old accountant who regularly snacked on grapes while working at his desk. He thought he was making a healthy choice. But one afternoon, he felt a tingling numbness in his right arm that lasted around 20 minutes. Concerned, he came in to see me. His MRI revealed multiple small infarcts, what we call silent strokes, which had accumulated over time. His brain was being damaged little by little, day after day. We monitored his glucose response after eating a cup of grapes. In just 30 minutes, his blood sugar surged from 95 to 180 milligrams per deciliter. Then, an hour later, it plummeted to 70. This kind of sharp spike and drop doesn't just make you feel tired or dizzy. It stresses your blood vessels, promotes clotting, and increases the likelihood of cognitive decline and stroke. And that's not all. Grapes, especially red grapes, contain a compound called tyramine, which can interact dangerously with MAO inhibitors, a class of antidepressants. For patients on these medications, eating grapes can cause sudden and severe spikes in blood pressure. We've had cases where this interaction triggered catastrophic strokes, fatal ones. The patients had no idea that such a common fruit could interact so dangerously with their prescriptions. There's another layer of risk, too. Grapes are among the most pesticide-contaminated fruits. The thin skin and high surface area allow pesticides to penetrate easily and accumulate over time. Several studies have linked long-term pesticide exposure to increased stroke risk, especially among people working in agriculture, but also among consumers who regularly eat non-organic grapes. For Robert, we made an immediate change. Grapes were removed from his diet. In their place, we introduced hydrating low-sugar alternatives like cucumber slices, cherry tomatoes, and the occasional slice of watermelon. These foods gave him that same juicy satisfaction without the sugar spike. Over time, his follow-up scans showed no new brain damage, and his numbness completely vanished. So what's the takeaway here? Grapes should be treated like dessert, not health food. If you really want to eat them, do so sparingly and never on an empty stomach. Always combine them with protein or fiber to blunt the sugar absorption. And if you're on medications or managing blood sugar, you may be better off avoiding them entirely. The risk just isn't worth it. Most people would never expect bananas or grapes to appear on a stroke risk list, but that's the very reason we're having this conversation. What we think we know about healthy eating often comes from marketing, not medicine. And when it comes to your brain, blind trust can be dangerous. Coming up next is the third fruit on our list, and this one is especially shocking because it's been promoted as a top-tier superfood. It's often blended into smoothies, added to detox juices, and even recommended by some health influencers. But the truth behind this fruit's hidden effects on your blood and brain will change the way you think about it forever. To slow the sugar absorption process, limit yourself to no more than 5 or 6 grapes at a time, and always eat them with a meal that contains both protein and fat, never on an empty stomach. But what makes grapes even more dangerous is how easily they're consumed in excess, especially when frozen. Many people mindlessly snack on frozen grapes, thinking they're harmless, only to end up consuming several cups without realizing it. That's a sugar bomb waiting to go off. Now, moving on to number 3 on our list, perhaps the most surprising entry yet, oranges. Yes, oranges, the fruit everyone associates with vitamin C and immune health. For decades, oranges have been marketed as the golden standard of wellness. But what the commercials don't show you is the serious and scientifically supported risks that oranges pose to individuals already at risk of stroke. This is one of the great paradoxes in medicine. Something beneficial, like vitamin C, coming packaged with something dangerous. The real culprit inside oranges isn't the vitamin C. It's a class of compounds called furanocoumarins. These natural plant chemicals interfere with key enzymes in the liver, most notably CYP3A4. This enzyme is responsible for metabolizing many medications. When you eat oranges or drink orange juice, these compounds suppress the enzyme, allowing medication levels in your bloodstream to skyrocket to toxic levels. This interaction doesn't take weeks or months. It can occur within a matter of hours. A 2020 study published in the International Journal of Stroke followed over 15,000 adults on blood pressure medications. The results were shocking. Those who consumed oranges or orange juice daily had a 44% higher risk of hemorrhagic stroke compared to those who consumed them rarely or not at all. These strokes weren't the result of weak vessels or underlying conditions. They were directly tied to elevated medication levels caused by the suppression of CYP3A4. I remember Susan vividly. She was a 71-year-old retired nurse who believed she was doing everything right. She took her medication religiously, maintained a clean diet, exercised moderately, and drank fresh-squeezed orange juice every morning, thinking it was the healthiest way to start her day. But when she arrived in my ER, she was pale and shaking. Her blood pressure had spiked to 210/120, and she complained of a pounding headache, what she described as the worst of her life. We rushed a CT scan, and there it was, a minor hemorrhagic stroke. She had been taking amlodipine for hypertension, a medication processed by the very enzyme that oranges inhibit. Due to her daily orange juice habit, her amlodipine concentration had tripled in her bloodstream. Her heart couldn't handle the pressure increase. That small bleed could have easily turned fatal had she waited another hour to seek help. But there's more. Oranges have a pH of 3.5, extremely acidic. Consuming them regularly erodes tooth enamel and causes chronic inflammation in the gums and throat. This oral inflammation plays a bigger role than most people realize. Through what's known as the oral systemic connection, bacteria from inflamed gums can enter the bloodstream, contributing to plaque buildup in the arteries, including those that lead directly to the brain. That inflammation has now been directly linked to a higher risk of stroke. And then there's the sugar. One large orange contains about 17 grams of sugar, most of it in the form of fructose. Unlike glucose, which your body uses immediately for energy, fructose is processed in the liver, where it generates uric acid as a byproduct. And elevated uric acid levels have long been associated with an increased risk of stroke, heart disease, and cognitive decline. Following her stroke, we completely overhauled Susan's diet. Oranges and orange juice were eliminated immediately. In their place, we introduced bell peppers, specifically yellow bell peppers. Not only are they crisp and refreshing, but they contain more than 4 times the vitamin C of oranges, around 340 milligrams per pepper, without any of the furanocoumarins or fructose. Susan's blood pressure stabilized within days, and her follow-up scan showed the brain bleed had completely stopped. Let me be clear. If you're currently on statins, blood thinners, calcium channel blockers, or blood pressure medication of any kind, oranges should not be a part of your daily diet. The risk isn't theoretical, it's real. And while there are safer ways to get vitamin C, no marketing campaign will tell you that. But if you think oranges are risky, the next fruit on this list is even more dangerous, and in many cases, deadly. At number 2, grapefruit. The danger of grapefruit is so well documented that many medications come with bold, explicit warnings that say, do not consume grapefruit or grapefruit juice. And yet, millions of people ignore these warnings, or worse, they never read them. Grapefruit contains some of the highest concentrations of furanocoumarins of any fruit. These compounds don't just interfere with medication. They can amplify the potency of certain drugs by 200 to 300%, overwhelming the body and leading to catastrophic side effects like internal bleeding, heart arrhythmias, or sudden spikes in blood pressure. According to the British Medical Journal, over 85 medications can be dangerously altered by grapefruit consumption. This includes common drugs like statins, anticoagulants, antidepressants, blood pressure medications, and even certain allergy medications. And unlike oranges, the potency of grapefruit's effect is much stronger and longer lasting. Here's what happens. You eat half a grapefruit or drink a glass of juice in the morning. The furanocoumarins block your liver's ability to break down medication. The drug levels build up throughout the day. And by the evening, you're unknowingly experiencing toxic levels in your bloodstream. This could result in anything from dizziness and confusion to a fatal stroke. One of my patients, Daniel, a 64-year-old man taking blood thinners after a minor heart attack, had been eating half a grapefruit every morning, something he'd done for years. He wasn't aware that the fruit could interact with his medication. One morning, he collapsed while getting dressed. A CT scan revealed a massive hemorrhagic stroke. His blood was too thin. The grapefruit had magnified the effect of his anticoagulant, leading to internal bleeding in his brain. We fought to stabilize him for over 36 hours. Thankfully, he survived, but he never regained full motor function on the left side of his body. One grapefruit, one interaction, one life permanently changed. If you're taking any prescription medications, especially statins, warfarin, amlodipine, or SSRIs, avoid grapefruit completely. There's no safe dose. Even a small amount can trigger a cascade of dangerous side effects. While it's easy to fall for the grapefruit diet or the idea that citrus is always cleansing, the truth is far more complicated. In medicine, we're not interested in trends. We're interested in outcomes. And grapefruit, despite its tangy taste and bright image, is one of the most medically dangerous fruits for seniors. And now, we've reached the most dangerous fruit of all, the one that nearly doubles your stroke risk overnight, and is likely sitting in your kitchen right now. Up to 3 days' worth of drug levels can be altered by drinking just one glass of grapefruit juice. The statistics are staggering and terrifying. Grapefruit doesn't just tangle with medication. It actively transforms your body's response to them, often in dangerous ways. Currently, there are 85 medications known to have dangerous interactions with grapefruit. Among these, 43 are potentially lethal. That's not an exaggeration. Just one seemingly healthy fruit can push the human body to its breaking point. According to an extensive review published in the Journal of the Canadian Medical Association, grapefruit can cause a cascade of damage, beginning with severe muscle breakdown. This releases large proteins, such as myoglobin, into the bloodstream, which can clog the kidneys and spark systemic damage, including strokes. Particularly concerning is grapefruit's effect on statin medications. Grapefruit can increase blood levels of statins by up to 1,500%, placing users at immediate risk of toxicity. I treated a patient named James, a 64-year-old construction foreman. He had been taking atorvastatin to manage his high cholesterol. In an effort to support his health, his wife began juicing fresh grapefruit for him each morning. Within 2 weeks, James developed intense muscle pain, and his urine turned dark, an ominous sign. By the time he arrived at the ER, his creatine kinase levels had reached 50,000 units per liter, over 300 times the normal value. He had experienced multiple minor strokes across his brain due to rhabdomyolysis. His muscles were breaking down so rapidly that the released proteins overwhelmed his kidneys and formed blood clots that reached his brain. He spent 3 weeks in intensive care and needed 6 months of rehabilitation to regain basic movement. All of this from grapefruit. But grapefruit's dangers don't end with medications. It contains compounds known as liminoids, which interfere with calcium channels in blood vessel walls. This can cause vasospasms, sudden constrictions of blood vessels, that are especially dangerous in the smaller arteries of the brain. A Japanese study involving over 20,000 adults showed that daily grapefruit consumption increased the risk of stroke by 59%, even among individuals not taking any medications. The reason? Grapefruit doesn't just interact with drugs. It alters the physiology of the cardiovascular system itself. Even more alarming is grapefruit's effect on clotting. It initially inhibits platelet aggregation, a function critical to stopping bleeding. At first glance, that might seem beneficial. But the body responds to a rebound effect, leading to hyperactive platelets and erratic clotting. This chaotic clotting activity makes conditions ideal for both ischemic and hemorrhagic strokes. In other words, grapefruit sets the stage for stroke, regardless of the type. The situation is worsened by grapefruit's high potassium content. At 340 milligrams per half fruit, it can significantly alter electrolyte balance, especially in older adults or those with kidney problems. Grapefruit's cumulative damage, whether through drug interaction, clotting disruption, or vasospasms, makes it a stealthy and severe threat to brain health. But there is one fruit even more deceptive than grapefruit, one that masquerades as a superfood while silently priming the body for disaster: pomegranate. Pomegranate has been championed as a heart-healthy miracle fruit, rich in antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties. But peer-reviewed studies are painting a very different picture. Despite its public image, pomegranate may be the most dangerous fruit for people over 55 when it comes to stroke risk. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in Stroke Research and Treatment in 2021 looked at over 25,000 cases and found that regular pomegranate consumption increased the risk of hemorrhagic stroke by 67% in seniors. Pomegranate contains a mix of sugar that stimulates clotting and punisins, unique compounds that interfere with vitamin K metabolism, a crucial element for regulating blood coagulation. This imbalance can lead to spontaneous brain bleeding, even in people not taking blood thinners. David, a 69-year-old professor and health enthusiast, fell victim to this deception. He worked out daily, avoided processed food, and drank pomegranate juice religiously for its supposed antioxidant effects. One morning, during a lecture, David collapsed. Doctors diagnosed him with a massive intracerebral hemorrhage. Shockingly, his INR, an index that measures blood clotting ability, was 4.8. For context, anything above 3.0 is considered dangerously thin blood. His blood had become too thin to clot, effectively turning it into water. What's worse, David wasn't on any blood thinners. The culprit was the pomegranate juice. Making matters more dangerous, David was also taking fish oil, turmeric, and ginkgo biloba, common natural supplements that also thin the blood. When combined with pomegranate, the effect was catastrophic. Pomegranate juice is especially dangerous because it is a concentrated extract. 1 cup of pomegranate juice requires 3 whole fruits and delivers around 134 milligrams of pinnacalogens, enough to disrupt clotting for up to 96 hours. That means a single serving can keep blood dangerously thin for 4 days. And most commercial juices are loaded with added sugars, further increasing blood sugar spikes, vascular inflammation, and clotting abnormalities. There's more. Pomegranate contains the highest oxalate content of any fruit, about 35 milligrams per serving. Oxalates are naturally occurring compounds that can crystallize and inflame blood vessels. Over time, chronic exposure leads to brittle, weakened vessels that are prone to rupture, especially in the brain. One study linked high oxalate consumption to a 40% increase in stroke risk, independent of medication use. After surviving his stroke, David could no longer speak clearly and had to retire from his academic post. Neurological assessments confirmed permanent damage. The blood-thinning effect of pomegranate juice had accumulated over months and, combined with other supplements, led directly to his hemorrhagic event. He was advised to completely avoid all blood-thinning supplements and fruit juices indefinitely. Even after his recovery, he never regained the cognitive sharpness he once had. From a nutrition standpoint, the aggressive marketing of pomegranate as a heart health hero is one of the greatest deceptions in modern health media. And what's worse, it's working. Health-conscious people, especially older adults, are unknowingly putting themselves at greater risk for stroke and bleeding by drinking concentrated fruit juices like pomegranate, thinking they're doing something good for their body. When it comes to antioxidants, many people immediately turn to fruits like pomegranates, assuming they're safe and beneficial. But in reality, that's not always the case. If you're trying to protect your heart and brain, it's crucial to know that not all fruits are created equal. While fruits like grapefruit and pomegranate are loaded with antioxidants, they can actually be dangerous, especially if you're taking medications or have existing blood or heart conditions. Pomegranates, for example, may thin the blood and interfere with clotting. If you've been eating pomegranates regularly, you should consider speaking with your physician. Ask to have your clotting factors checked, and it might be wise to take a break from them, especially if you're on any medication that affects blood pressure or blood thinning. Pomegranates may seem innocent, but their effects on your body can be serious if you're not aware of them. So if pomegranates and citrus fruits like grapefruit carry risks, are there any fruits that are actually safe and even beneficial for stroke prevention and brain health? Absolutely. And I'm going to walk you through the 3 fruits I recommend to all of my treatment patients. Fruits I personally eat every day. These fruits aren't just safe, they're powerful. In fact, multiple studies show that eating them regularly can slash your risk of stroke by up to 52%. Let's start with blueberries. When it comes to protecting the brain and preventing stroke, blueberries are the real champions. They're rich in anthocyanins, natural compounds that actively repair damaged blood vessels and protect against future strokes. A landmark study from Harvard University tracked over 93,000 women for 18 years and found that those who ate blueberries 3 times per week had a 32% lower risk of stroke. How do they work? It's at the cellular level where blueberries perform their magic. 1 cup contains around 84 milligrams of anthocyanins, and these compounds pass to the blood-brain barrier to directly shield neurons from oxidative stress. Even better, blueberries have a low glycemic index of 53, which means they release sugar into the bloodstream slowly, without triggering dangerous spikes. For the best results, eat 1 cup of fresh or frozen organic blueberries daily. Frozen berries, in fact, may be even more potent. The freezing process breaks down the cell walls and makes those protective compounds more accessible. Try mixing them into plain Greek yogurt to create a protein-rich, brain-boosting breakfast. Next, let's talk about avocados. Technically a fruit, Avocados are very different from high-sugar fruits. They're rich in monounsaturated fats, which help reduce inflammation and improve blood flow to the brain. For adults over 50, eating one avocado a day has been shown to reduce stroke risk by up to 45%. A study from the University of Pennsylvania highlights avocados' unique potassium profile. They contain about 609 milligrams of potassium, but unlike bananas, the fiber and fat in avocados slow the absorption of potassium, preventing the spikes that could lead to heart issues. Avocados also contain lutein, a powerful antioxidant concentrated in brain tissue that offers additional protection against stroke damage. Half an avocado per day is ideal. It provides about 10 grams of fiber and helps stabilize blood sugar throughout the day. Spread it on whole grain toast or toss it into salads. Plus, the healthy fats in avocados help your body absorb fat-soluble vitamins, amplifying their brain protective benefits. And finally, strawberries, a surprising powerhouse. In a massive European study of over 450,000 participants, strawberries emerged as the most protective fruit against stroke. People who ate strawberries twice a week had a 30% lower stroke risk, even after researchers adjusted for lifestyle factors like diet and exercise. What makes strawberries so effective? It's a unique combination of folate, vitamin C, and ellagic acid. One cup provides about 85 milligrams of vitamin C, and unlike citrus, strawberries don't contain the harmful compounds like furanocoumarins that can interfere with medications. They also naturally contain salicylates, compounds similar to aspirin that help prevent blood clots, without the increased bleeding risk seen with pomegranate. To get the full benefit, go for 8 medium organic strawberries a day. Avoid juicing them. Instead, eat them whole so you can get all that valuable fiber, which slows sugar absorption and improves digestion. By eating these 3 fruits, blueberries, avocados, and strawberries, daily, you're doing more than just avoiding dangerous alternatives. You're actively repairing your brain, stabilizing blood flow, and strengthening your defense against strokes. I often advise my patients to create a brain bowl with all 3, blueberries, strawberries, and avocado slices topped with ground flaxseed. It's delicious, satisfying, and proven to protect your health. Now, before we go, here's what I'd like from you. If this video resonated with you and you've learned something new today, drop a 1 in the comments to let us know you're on board. If you're still unsure or have questions, type 0, and let's keep the conversation going. Have you or someone you know ever experienced unusual symptoms after eating what seemed like a healthy fruit? What happened? Share your story below. We read every comment, and your experience might help someone else. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest updates here at Senior Health. Your brain deserves the best, and making informed food choices is the first step. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourself and those you love.